can't ask for a better location than Neemrana's Tijara Fort Palace in Rajasthan, an iconic asset that Aman and Sonavi run. Beautiful, my first time here. Lovely weather, a great backdrop as you can see, and what a story. A story that we'd really like to take to you all today through this medium and hear it from both Aman and Sonavi. This asset started in 2016 in a collaboration with Rajasthan Tourism, and time and a lot of effort. And Aman has given it his best, and what a beautiful asset. Now, let me get straight to the point. And of course, I'd like to, this is also like a school get together, right? Yes. Aman is my senior from school, yeah, and Sonavi is my junior. Her mother was also my senior, so it's a modernite get together. So to say, Aman, tell us about the very genesis of the idea that today has ended up being such a lean and great business, right? A great brand. I call it the Neemrana Empire. If I was to say so, when did it really happen? What was the idea? Tell us the story behind that.
You know, the truth is that when you retrospect, there are many moments, but it was not a planned thing. You know, you don't say, I'm going to grow up and run hotels. But you made it easy for us by saying modern school, which is very important because modern school was, in my opinion, the most creative of all schools. I've taught at the Doon School briefly. I've visited many other schools. But the real story is that, and in modern school, everything was taught to us. You know that, you know, we did carpentry, photography, we did Kathak, we did horse riding, we did, you know, everything. So the spectrum was so wide in culture that it made it easy for us to imagine that we could do all. So being a non-architect and a non-hotelier, it is, I suppose, aptitude and aspiration that naturally drives you in the direction that you want to go. So that's how it happened. But I think there are other aspects to it also. Like many of us in Delhi, we are born of parents, or refugee parents from...
Migrants.
Okay. No, refugees is really the truth because they came and stayed in tents and they started from zero, you know. So it was, yeah, we were not just like, you know, migrated with our, you know, bank accounts in place. So it was starting from zero, and that was the best childhood you could have because we were taught the value of everything, you know, of a straw, of a match. I remember a fan being bought, you know, I was 4 years old. Like, it's hard to imagine that 4 years in our life we must have lived without a fan. We slept on the terrace. So that was the great childhood one should aspire to have, where more is made out of less. But we never once, I don't remember once having the feeling of, you know, anything less than abundance. At the dining table, at home, with guests coming, we lived a normal life. How and where that food was brought to the table and how our parents raised us, and all of us actually, because you talk to thousands of people who were raised in Delhi, and they were, so that gave the entrepreneurial spirit. But then my aptitude was towards, you know, art, you know, carpentry, building, even as children, with building with mechano blocks and all that. And because we didn't have an ancestral house, and we heard that we came from a very eminent family, because my great-grandfather was the first Indian sessions judge in British time, which was a big thing. And he was one of the founder members of the Punjab National Bank, of the DAV colleges. So, you know, born in a family with a lineage, you're on the road, so you know where you have to go, but you don't know how you have to go, except by pure hard work and by ingenuity, innovation, and thrift. So Neemrana is all those things.
You know, what we see over here today is an amazing structure. In some way, it looks like a real old fort without restoration. But whatever little I spoke with Sonavi today and I saw in pictures, this was a dilapidated structure. It just didn't exist. And you started 30 years ago, right? Soon you'll be 30. But now you have almost 5,000 plus years of history with the assets that you have restored,
Yes.
to take to your clients who keep coming. What's the story?
No, so the story is seeing everything differently, because when people ask, what was your budget? You never have a budget when you start something, If you ask the people, do you look at H.P. Nanda who did escorts? Nobody had a budget when you're a refugee. But you add one and make it 10, and then, and it grows by geometrical progression, because you know how to invest, where you can fill in the gaps, and where you mustn't do what the world isn't looking for. So I think that in the 60s, India saw that kind of tourism, because the foreigners were not coming. Everybody thought they would die of some disease or, in a plane crash and so on. So the hotels were doing the right thing. They were trying to emulate the West and create something where people who came from outside felt at home. So they said, it's just like us, we can have a Coca-Cola, we can have a hot dog, or whatever the Intercontinental, offered at that time. But by the time I grew up, I sensed and I knew that was kind of getting over. It was not no stroke of genius, because people were now traveling to see the difference. They were not wanting to say, I'm leaving my house and I want to go to a place which is exactly like my house. People say a home away from home. It can be in the intangible feeling of, but it's not really what you want. You don't want to leave your house, arrive at a place and say, gosh, it looks just like my house. Then why have you spent this money and energy? So I think it should not resemble your house at all. This doesn't look like anybody's house. Nobody has acres of, mustard fields or rice fields or wheat fields or whatever is grown around us. And nobody has such a, sort of magnetic location of 8 acres of fort. But what is the story of this is that it was never completed. So a Maharaja started to build, and 13 years after he built, he lost his life. We don't know if he was, bumped off or he died a natural death, and it went back to the Alwar state. And nobody was interested in this. So it was ravaged, and there's enough iconoclast, people come from the villages, remove stone arches and pillars. So it was an absolute ruin. So that, for somebody like me, is both a challenge and something which excites me in a very modern school way, if I might say.
And excites you how? You've not just done one asset, you've done so many of them.
Yeah, Neemrana has done about 32 properties all over India in 18 states. It's not just a private madness. It becomes a commitment. Once you say you've got a magic wand and you walk in a graveyard and you touch a grave and somebody comes alive, then you start enjoying it. So you wake up one building, another, and so on. And this is a conquest of forts, but without war, without firing guns, So fortunately, my name is Aman. So it is a, kind of peacetime conquest, a creative conquest.
And then Nath.
And Nath, yes, Lord of Peace.
Yeah. So that brings me to my next point, which I was just thinking about. So in more ways than one, you've actually given back to the society by infusing new life into assets which had really gone beyond end of life.
Yeah. Right? They've been written off, actually. Nobody, people, when I first did Neemrana, everybody thought I was an agent of Rajneesh. There were a lot of articles. They were saying that Rajneesh will come and hide some treasures here, or I don't know what they were imagining. But then they got to know me slowly. I was very young then, and they got used to the idea that I was not, even here, that I was not a smuggler who was going to come and put his gold bricks here, because you employ people and they meet with you, they talk with you, and I'm as transparent as glass. I hide nothing from people because I have nothing to hide. And so therefore they reciprocate with the same transparency, and then you become one very closely. You know? It's very important when you must talk to our people if you're staying overnight and get what their view on the thing is. They feel so good about it because this is first their heritage. They've grown up with this around it, you know, and they never imagined that it was ever going to come alive in a way that would employ hundreds of them, of all communities.
So Neemrana, in its own way, is a very big brand today. Right? And it's aspirational, right? And it doesn't come cheap to grab a holiday at any Neemrana asset. Having said that, like you just said about, you were speaking about employment. You've done so much of direct and indirect employment. Tell me, if one was to really see the big brand play, what is the non-hotel USP of Neemrana Hotels?
First, it was not built from scratch to be a hotel. So if I might say, I mean, I want to, not in any derogatory way to the brands, but you know, the products that people make have a sameness about them. You know, you have room 120, 21, 22, 23, and you buy, you know, hundreds of meters of carpet and everything is the same, which is fine because that's how hotels are or were. But this is exactly the opposite of that. It turns the whole thing on the head. Not one room is the same. We never buy, you know, two of anything because it's old furniture, it's all, you know, nice textiles. So if you've stayed in one room, I mean, we've met people who've come to Neemrana and people have said, it's my 20th time. I don't think people go to a hotel 20 times by choice. You can go by compulsion. If you're going to Bangalore to work in a city and you like a hotel, you can go there many, many times. But by choice to sit, I know I have a sunrise view, I have a sunset view, I have a garden view, I have, you know, now we have lifts, so I have a rooftop view. The experiences are so different within one property. And of course, within all the properties that we run across India, we've got everything, you know, we're by a river, we're in the sand dunes, we're on a hill, you know,
by the sea.
Everywhere we are. So I tell people that, you know, rather than make a house in one place, my father used to say that. He used to say, wise people stay in other people's houses. He probably meant this, you know. He said, if you buy properties, you have litigation, you have to look after it, there's encroachments. But in the money that you spend to make a house, whatever crores it is, if you were to put in a bank, and being reasonable, people don't do a holiday every 3 days, you know. If you do 1 or 2 holidays with the family, the big ones, just the interest of that will give you money to once try out, you know, the glass house on the Ganges, once you go to Tranquebar by the sea. So you have 30 experiences and feel damn good about it because all the plumbing, the laundry, everything is somebody else's problem, not your own.
Began with Rajasthan, now you spread out all over the country, right? You're in the south, you're in the west, you're in Cochin, you're in the Himalayas, you're by the sea, you're by the Ganges, you're there everywhere. It's a huge operation, right? You're always calm, you're always in control, you're always at peace with yourself. Tell me, how do you manage this entire operation? What's the skill? Is it your meditation?
I don't meditate.
You know, so I mean, this is your meditation, right? So
Yes.
yeah, this is your
no,
work.
firstly, it's not me. Firstly, it's a big team. You know, we have 700 people, so everybody must be doing something. So if everybody does their bit and you empower them and believe in them, then you've got that many hands. You know, so either you lock everything and run behind people, chase them, and all. We made systems. You know, and since Sonavi has come, the systems have been, systems also get fossilized. You have to wake them up and remind people it's not just a thing, one operation on number 1 and one number 10, but that you have to activate them. So now people, because we take special pride in the fact that majority of our people were not trained. They're raw people, and Indian people are so clever and so warm, hospitality comes naturally to them. So if you teach them systems and you empower them and give them all that it takes to present their department, then there's nothing that holds them back. It is really a team operation. Of course, there is a vision. You say what kind of property you want to do, because you can't expect everybody down the line to just come. But so many properties are offered to us. Each of us, and visitors come here. My grandmother's house, I'm a Maharaja, I'm from Bundelkhand, I'm from Tanjavur. So we almost get the first choice of every heritage property
So you now
in
have
India.
the luxury of
Picking and choosing. Yeah. And even states, we've done public-private partnerships. So states are now demanding of us that we would like Neemrana to come here, and they send their people to see, and they say, we can't do this so easily. It needs the Neemrana spirit to do it.
So you just spoke about Sonavi, not just because she's your niece, right? She's been with you for a while now. 13 years, Sonavi?
That's right. I joined in 2010.
So I'll now slip from you to her with your permission,
Yes.
right? So Sonavi, you come into the frame now. So tell me the challenges of, say, marketing, dynamic pricing, and for such a heritage hotel, what is the right level of pricing? How do I penetrate through all the mediums of communication to get to my client, right? Now, you have an advantage. Neemrana, you don't have to sell. But yes, if you were to see the basket of offerings available to any, so to say, target client, customer, how do you cut through that clutter? How do you do that?
See, when I joined in 2010, Neemrana was already an established brand, both domestically and internationally. So I think that in itself was a huge advantage. We weren't starting out afresh. It was already very, very well known. But I would say in the last decade or so, what has changed behind the scene at Neemrana is that we have so many different properties now, and they offer something. Each one has its own aspect, its own USP. And to make these properties feasible through the year is where we all come in. And whether it is dealing with the traditional travel agents that still deal offline, or dealing with the modern OTAs, we've done a lot to make ourselves travel friendly and to also ensure that we have rate parity like all the other hotels. Last year, we participated at the World Travel Market in London for the first time, and it was really fascinating because we had this huge photograph of the flagship property, and we also had all the other hotels which are a part of our portfolio, which were displayed. And interestingly, people were coming up and saying, I swam in that swimming pool in 2015. And somebody was coming and saying, I've stayed in Aman Villas, and tell me what else is going on at Neemrana. So it's been a beautiful journey for me. I've learned a lot because earlier I was working in a traditional hotel chain, to speak. And Neemrana has really taught me a lot. And I think one has to keep evolving as we go along. So both from the sales and marketing perspective, as well as from an infrastructure perspective, because people are really now looking for comfort as well as a unique experience. So that's really where I come in.
13 years is a lot. So one can safely asking you, looking back, from where Aman brought you in, you came in, handed you over a mandate. What has changed? I mean, you've become more professional, or what?
So I think again there are just so many aspects to if I had to put it in a nutshell, I would say that my formal association with Neemrana started in 2010, but I had a childhood association since Mr. Nath was restoring the fort, the Neemrana Fort Palace. So I felt that there was an important aspect, and that was to balance the local workforces that are actually running the show on a day-to-day basis, and all the think tanks that we have back in the corporate office in Delhi. Because sometimes what may seem like a very fantastic idea or a path-breaking idea may not actually be something that you can implement in a property, in a heritage property. There are constraints, you have torrential rains that take place, you have winters where the sun doesn't come out at all. There are so many different aspects as well. And we have a very, very diverse clientele. So I think over the years, what we've really done is to function in a very modern way behind the scene. So we've really compartmentalized different aspects of the operations, the day-to-day operations. So Neemrana, maybe earlier back in the day, did not really have a sales team, as you said. You didn't really need to go out and get the business. People came to you naturally. Now that's something that we've changed. So along with the reservations team, we have a sales team as well. More than a decade or so ago, we delved into online reputation management, social media. We're all involved personally in terms of purchase. We actually, choose every single thing that you see in a Neemrana property, in any Neemrana property, has been handpicked. So I think that's really where the difference lies. And we are very, very dedicated to our people. And, constantly we're in touch throughout the day. I mean, sometimes even in the night we'll get a call, and we're always available. And I think we have a very humanitarian approach towards hospitality. So we look at things from the perspective of our team and also from the perspective of our clients.
Interesting that you spoke about your people and your humanitarian approach. Part of your mandate, apart from running the entire ops, right, is the financial side of it and people management, right? People management is extremely critical to this industry, which would collapse if not for people, right? So, and you've kept your attrition so low. Your entire old team is with you. They're all there and you're growing.
Yes.
So that's a beautiful thing to have for any CEO. Tell me, how have you managed this? And
so we actually, as I mentioned, have a very different outlook towards the business model. And more than a decade ago, we introduced education reimbursement, which was something that other hotel chains probably hadn't even thought about for their team members. We offer interest-free loans, and this is again has been there for a long time. And this is a facility where in the time of need, Neemrana is there for you. It could be a medical emergency, it could be the marriage of your child, or we want everybody to grow in their life, or even the purchase of their home. So these are aspects where we really think.
An example you should give.
Yes.
yeah, COVID is a great example.
And especially in COVID, we have a term in all our terminology, in all our communication, we talk about the Neemrana family. And, we read about so many media reports about, people just being retrenched, and there wasn't really any thought that came into our mind at that point, apart from the fact that we had to keep our family together. And I think that is something where, even when I went back to Cochin because Kerala was hit very, very badly during both the lockdowns, everybody turned around and said that, the way that Neemrana looked after us during this time, we will never forget it. And we're here to, give it back in whichever way we can. So again, it's financial management and people management, which are actually intrinsically linked to each other. And we're a very conservative company. So we keep actually investing back into the company, and we keep trying to improve our infrastructure. I'm an avid traveler as well. So wherever I see something which is practical for the hotels, I try and implement it.
You wanted to say something.
I wanted to say that people are really surprised that we've never taken a loan. And that surprises hoteliers and friends. They say, never taken a loan to do projects like this, just out of sheer hard work. I mean, I work 20 hours a day, even today. And for me, the joy is, when you were talking about the pan-Indian thing, that we have restored properties of the Chauhans, of the Marwadis, of the Rajputs, of the Marathas, of the Sikhs, of Jadavs. That Kesoli was even a Jat and a Kayam Khani property. And then we've done Dutch, Danish, Portuguese, British, Scottish. I mean, it's amazing that in a short period of 30 years, because we are 30 years in the company, that we have touched so many, parts of India's history, colonial history, and the national, the dynasties and families. So when we say we used to say one of the youngest hotels, the chains of India, has the oldest properties, because we had 14th century, 15th century, 16th century, 17th, 18th, 19th. So even in the whole world, I mean, a chain doesn't do a spectrum of 700 years, and then if you add up all the years, it becomes 5,000 years of history on offer. So I've done my master's in history, but I don't really see any connection. But the value of history, that when you touch a wall, you know, at the Hill Fort case, solely 700 years old, you're sleeping in a room like that, and it's a feeling.
Oh, it is. You answered part of my next question. I'll go back to you, Sonavi. You crossed 50 crores. 22-23, you've crossed 88. You've trained your eyes on 100 CR. What's the plan? Where are you headed? And how do you look at it when you look at it in hindsight?
I think we have a very clear vision on where we are and where we want to be. And yes, 100 of course is a mark that we're looking at. And we're constantly working on different projects as well. We've just launched Neemrana's 3 Waters in Goa. There are a few projects in the pipeline. But I think the main thing is that we haven't deviated from our USP, which is to restore India's dilapidated ruins and to ensure that we generate local employment. So these two are really the two main ethos, points in our portfolio and in our branding. And I think the main thing for us is that we have to keep looking at restoring India's heritage, but they have to be viable projects that we do. And as we go along, we want to keep expanding our footprint. Unlike some other brands, we're not in a hurry to cross the borders and go international. There are plenty of projects that are waiting to be discovered in India. And I think we're absolutely committed to that. Since I'm a Rhodes Scholar, I was also taught back in the day that you have to go back to your own country and be the change there. So I think that's something which I look forward to doing, and Neemrana is going to continue to prosper, and we're going to continue to grow.
So my next one is to both of you, right? Uncle and niece. How is it working together? And how do you separate your responsibilities, and what's the level of coordination?
It gets separated on its own, you know. There are things that she is very good at, which don't interest me intrinsically. If I have to do it, I can do it, you know, but for me it's a drudgery. And there are things, there are detailings and things which certainly wouldn't be interested in, you know, a doorknob and all that. So we divide that very well. But as she was saying, you know, our tagline when we started was, we don't let history become a bygone. And that's a big claim, you know. So, and I remember in the first interview for India Magazine, somebody said to me, how many projects would you like to do? So I said 50. They said 50. It sounded like 500 of then. But, you know, we've done many, and some we've also given up because they were just great, fantastic restorations, but they were places people didn't go. So if we've reached 32 or something, 50 isn't so far off, you know. So, well, I forgot your question though.
No, I mean, you know, how is it working between?
Yes, no, I did answer that. So I said, so we work professionally, and knowing each other and, you know, sharing some common blood is always an asset, you know. That means there is an unspoken understanding about so many things, you know. So
I think it's been great. I learn from him every single day, and you know, he's an example of somebody who's made a difference in so many different lives. And every time we disagree on certain things as well, which is great and healthy in a corporate setup. But then we always think about it, and we always arrive at an amicable solution, which is always in the best interest of the company. So I think as long as there's ground for everybody to express their opinion and you know, to keep moving forward positively, it's only an advantage to be related.
Excellent. That brings me to the last, but not the least. 9th of July, you guys became 30, right? And that's, looking back, 30 is a lot, right? But looking ahead, it's just maybe halfway through, or maybe 25% of. Tell me about your vision. right? And Sonavi, you also step in, you know, what is it that you'd like to be remembered for, right?
You know, the cosmos is so big. If you think about it, you know, we don't even count on it. But you know, if you don't get into that, you know, you don't really do things to be remembered. But posterity remembers you if you touch history. And, you know, wealthy people, there are many. You can wear the most expensive ring in the world, but you're dead and it goes to the next person who can afford to buy it. But architecture is something that sits there. And so, you know, the Taj Mahal is there. And the Basra chadar, which covered the graves, which had 5 million pearls and was apparently valued as much as that, was fought over in the next generation. They tore it apart and all those millions of pearls went into the ground. So that was lost. So I think whatever we've done, you know, if we've extended the life of Neemrana will be 560 years next year. So if you extended its life by 500 years, and if 300 people's livelihood depends upon it, they will see to it that it prospers, because it's related to their prosperity. Whereas in the past, it was a different ball game, you know, it was the ruling head, etc. So this is a company, and I think so we already answered that question, you know.
So tell me, how are you going to carry the legacy ahead?
Well, I have a great responsibility on my shoulders, but I think my grounding in India, spent most of my life here, is something that is going to always help me, because the people are something that I love, and that's the reason that I want to be here. I'm truly a nationalist at heart, and going forward, I think we have to continue to work hard, and we have to continue to keep listening to, you know, things that other people are doing right and things that other people are doing wrong, because there's a lot of if you get too ambitious, I mean, the way up is hard, but the way down is really fast. So as long as we keep our you know, head on our shoulders, and we continue to grow in a steady and sustainable way, I think that's really where you know, we have plenty of projects ahead of us, and the most important factor, like I said, is the people.
And remaining fiercely Indian, you know, because our Indian card is our first thing. You know, we're not trying to be something, we're not less than anybody. Now
And the ethos.
And the ethos. So, you know,
Yeah.
so India, the golden, you know, age of the Guptas, the golden bird, all that. Now we can see that world coming. It's fortunate that we've contributed to that, you know, you and us, all of us. And it's on the upswing, and so much of the West is on the downswing, you know, it's rather not be there. And when you travel in the countryside and see young people, you know, average being 25, 30, it's a great feeling. We can't be dead, you know, we are alive. We have to be fiercely Indian and not copy them, but find our own ways, much like the Japanese did when they conquered the world. So I think Neemrana has just the right mix for all that.
Like they say, it's the Indian century.
It is.
Right?
It is.
So we have a lot staring at us, and also we carry the responsibility of carrying India ahead, like you just said. India's at our hearts. Now, it's a beautiful day. When I drove out of Delhi this morning to reach here, I didn't realize we'd leave the rains behind and there'd be sun. Beautiful weather, brilliant background, lush green surroundings. One couldn't have asked for better.
Good karma.
Right? Good karma. Thank you for having us over here today. It's been an absolute delight, an absolute pleasure. I look forward to this evening and wish you all the luck. May Neemrana go places. May you both carry the torch of India ahead. And God bless you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another day, another location. Today we are at the Neemrana. Neemrana, the Neemrana Fort Palace, where it all started years ago. 1977, when Aman Nath first stepped here to take a look. Then 1986, when he started all the action. of acquiring it and rebuilding it in 1991 when he launched it. Launched it with this asset to where he is with 32 of them. I'm back with Aman Nath here today. Hi, Aman.
Hello.
So here we are. Yesterday we were at the Tijara. Today we are here. And let's hear about this story of how it started. I know your parents have been here, right? Your dad has graced this place, but then I think it was here till here, right?
Yes.
And to where it is, it would be nice and interesting to show to the audience what it was, dilapidated. There was nothing here. There was just
Yes.
one huge rock, right, to what it is now. And it sits in so well with the terrain, with the catchment, with the location. Tell us more. I'll leave it to you. It's your mic.
Well, actually, at that point, it was an utter ruin, but it was even then a very splendid ruin. So when people say you're crazy, we were not crazy because I could see life in it, you know. If it had 520, 30 years of life, then we had to only extend it. But lifestyle then in the Middle Ages was very simple. They were ramparts with holes in it, which worked for the soldiers for toilets. The water would come on donkey back in copper cauldrons. So you couldn't think of gardens because gardens need water. You couldn't think of 2 showers a day if you want to. And certainly you couldn't think of swimming pools. So after we did the first swimming pool, which is somewhere midway, we then had to do another one because that became the happy pool for children to enjoy and scream and throw balls. But there were people who also wanted to just chill by the...
And it's done responsibly.
Yeah.
Right, it's extremely responsible of how you've done it. Not just the building and the architecture, right, how it marries into the catchment. You've brought in a lot of local employment.
Yes,
I met people over here. Anybody I asked, bhai, kitne saal ho gaye kaam karte hue? I haven't met anybody under 8 years. 30 saal, 32 saal ho gaye, 30 saal ho gaye.
So that's gratifying. That's why when I come here, in a sense, I feel I'm coming home because for displaced people like us, there is no traditional home. But this one is older than the one that was in Lahore. You know, that would have been 19th century, let's say.
Number 11 Nisbat Road.
Absolutely, absolutely. But, when you shift homes or when you move from one city to the other, there's a lot of layering over. And I think, fortunately, man has a very short memory for unpleasant things. So we, as Punjabis, particularly, are very forward-thinking. And, whatever is gone is gone. No point saying I had a diamond, I had a ruby, I had a horse. That's a very sort of royal...
It's today where we are.
It's today. We are standing on this, even this, if you're wise, even this land is not yours. But wherever you stand and the environment, if you can make it that much better, then you're justified to stand. If you inherit this and you drink it all away, and that means that you were not even a responsible person to inherit it, That I think the challenge is there. So I walked into this ruin and from day one I saw life in it, up on the Hawa Mahal terrace. I said one day people are going to eat homemade strawberry ice cream and they're going to say, wow, the sun was setting and the sun still sets. It's been going on, long before us, long after us. The only intervention was to make an unfriendly, utter ruin habitable and pleasant. So the process was reversed, as is evident, because a fort is built to keep people out. So you'll only see gun holes, you'll see on top of the entrance holes where you could pour hot oil, and the spokes at the entrance gates, because so that elephants couldn't charge. Because, they could see them and they wouldn't charge. But in war, they were so unkind, they would blindfold the elephants and make them barge through because they couldn't care one elephant less or more,
So tell me, Neemrana, the name per se, right? This is where you started. Now this name is all over the country. So you didn't think of another name? And
no, it's a nice name because
it is.
Neemrana, actually, there are many stories to it. But the word Neem in Persian means half, When you say Neem Hakim Khatre Jan.
Khatrai Jan.
Khatrai Jan, yes. So Neemrana means half Rana, means it was not such a big kingdom. Although by lineage it was the descendants of Prithviraj Chauhan, who was like Napoleon would be to France. He was the last great Hindu ruler.
Yeah.
But they had been reduced. But they remained continuously proud as Chauhans. They didn't want to bow to the British. And they had huge lands up till Naba, Patiala. So every time they showed some disrespect or resurrection vis-a-vis the rulers, the British, they would take away some land, give it to somebody who was,
So tell me here, I mean, you built this. How many rooms here?
We have about 80 rooms.
80, right? So what next? Are you going to add on to this? Any more plans here? I know you're doing the entire laundry center there.
No,
The
those are facilities.
The utilities,
not
yeah.
really, because it is very sprawled, but you don't want 10 people per square inch. So what happens is that people have their mahal, which is the word here for a suite or room, and then they have their courtyard or balcony or garden or whatever, and they see themselves, the sky and the cosmos. But when they come for a meal, then people say, where have all these people come from? Because then it's like a city, it's like petering out. And then you see everybody together. But the photographers are happy because it's like studio light for them.
Yeah.
So.
And with this, we sum up the review of the two beautiful Neemrana assets in the company of Aman and Sonavi. And standing here at the gates of the Neemrana, I can very well say, Neemrana, Neemrana. Anybody who's not had a stay here or visited this place must have any Neemrana asset, especially the Neemrana Fort Palace, on their bucket list. With this, I shall take leave and we shall cap this wonderful 2 days and this show. Thank you, Sonavi. Thank you, Aman. Bye-bye.